I don't think India has any recession. I'll tell you what recession is. I have a house in New York which was worth 2 million. Today it's worth $500,000. That is recession. Even if I was to pay it off, I will still be paying my EMIs, so-called, for the rest of my life, and I still won't get anything. Now that's recession. For a recession to happen, you have to have a negative GDP growth. Okay, when we are doing 5 to 6% or maybe more right now, there's no recession. When we were selling goods, when we were selling for 70 lakhs, 80 lakhs, a crore, a lot of us developers, and I'm one of them probably, I think the mistake we did was we did not get the pulse of the customer. We did not look at our customer, the end user. We kept going on and on and on with just investors. Gentlemen, the median income in India for a family, a middle class income is 40,000 rupees. Okay, which translates into 4,80,000 a year. Do you think they can afford something worth 60 lakhs or 70 lakhs? All of a sudden now we have that big thing about affordable housing. Now we are saying, okay, we stuck with all these stocks. Okay, we've done it to ourselves. We did not put the consumer, the end user into perspective, and that's what happens. Okay, so a lot of this has to be, we got to look at logic. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to go more into that, and let me go back to what I was here for, which is talking about commercial leasing. And to start out with, amongst the panelists, can you give us an idea as to what commercial leasing has in store? What's the market right now? Since most of our audience here is from Delhi NCR or north of India, if you can pinpoint what's happening in north of India, especially Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida, Greater Noida, and how's it happening?
Look, the markets are, they've actually, sorry, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. So with respect to markets, probably leasing markets, you have people from transactions here, they can shed more light. But primarily speaking in terms of numbers, 2014 was a much better year, not just for NCR, but even for Bangalore, or even any other, real estate bigger markets. Like I was saying, 2014 was a much better year. In fact, 13 and 12 were pretty similar years to each other. And 14, we saw a huge transition in terms of the amount of transactions that actually happened in the market. One change that people saw was that a lot of transactions were happening primarily from a relocation or consolidation kind of an exercise. A lot of bigger corporates were coming together. From a numbers perspective, 13 in NCR was only 3.8 million square feet net absorption. Compared that to 2014, 14 did something like 5.5 million square feet of net absorption in Delhi NCR. So that itself shows, how the markets did, in the last couple of years. And things have moved up. In fact, the last half of 2014 and beginning 2015, we're seeing a situation where, we're seeing more of expansion-driven new demand coming into the market. A lot of relocations and consolidations have actually, happened already.
Very good. Amit, can you also elaborate on this?
Well, if you're looking at the leasing perspective, and when we talk about the commercial leasing perspective, I can throw light on the retail leasing part of it. I have not been actively involved in commercial office space per se. And my understanding of this discussion was that we are discussing that how is the green building development going to boost or help in the leasing part of it, right, Dheeraj?
Sure, we can touch on that, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll go back to my development days when we used to be in charge of developing retail spaces and hospitality spaces. So when we talk about green building, a green building is something which when we were doing development at that point in time, it was the start of that. And when we used to do our spreadsheets and see how much it can increase the development cost, that seemed like a humongous, I would say, cost as compared to a regular building. But when you look at the revenues, when you start looking at the revenues going forward and coming into a new age of construction these days, then the retailer per se and the occupants of any commercial space is looking at his cost of occupancy. So how do we decrease the cost of occupancy? That is something which all developers they have to keep in mind, because that cost is something which is not going in anybody's pocket. It is kind of a wastage that is getting passed through. So when we're doing green building construction, that is what we have to keep in mind, and that helps good rentals. I would say that helps good business for the occupants, and because they do good businesses, they are able to pay you better dollars, better rupees here. So that is what my understanding of green building development as compared to the leasing perspective. I don't know the recent data of how many green buildings are being developed in India, and what leasing percentage would be. Maybe my friend here, Rohan, maybe somebody here could help us on that as well.
Well, green buildings, I mean, with smart cities on the way, the current government, what they want to do, I think green buildings will become a norm anyway, because you want to do energy efficient, you want to make sure the environment doesn't get hurt, and so all of those things are going to happen automatically because of just purely, even if you were to look at the smart cities in itself, which the government wants to do. So I think green buildings are definitely there. I would like to touch here for a moment with Mr. Salil Kumar, because we have we have 4 channel partners, so-called, and then we have 1 developer here. So I want to get his perspective, and then I'll come back to the channel partners back.
Right. Dheeraj, green building, it seems the need of the hour, need of the day, and need of the year. We really feel that in coming ages, not only green building, you require A++ category with the modern age coming in. Most of the people require good working space, like we are sitting in very good environment. The similar kind of environment when we come, then definitely health is a concern. Environment should be very good. At the same time, maintenance cost. Because if it's an environment friendly building made out, keeping in view of our green building complex, the maintenance cost definitely will be low. And apart from that, now you are seeing the air pollution concerns now. So in time to come, health will be an area, energy saving will be a great criteria, and of course, well-designed building as well.
Do you think, sorry to interrupt you here, but do you think it costs more? Is that the reason a lot of developers might not want to get into green buildings? It costs more to develop?
Not really. It may be ignorance, maybe one criteria. So that's why we feel most of the people have not come up with those green building concepts. But I believe now most of the new developers, they are going for as good as gold rating green buildings normally, which is very good for the country as well. You are saving energy and you are giving good environment to the people also. At the same time, I would like to mention, in fact, in some of the new towers, as an ESOTech, we are not only, apart from green building, we have introduced air purification system also, so that the air which you breathe, which is very, very bad in Delhi, you get a pure, almost as good as pure air inside your rooms. This is the new system. As in corporate, as a developer, we have incorporated in some of the new towers which we are building now.
The other thing I just was reading about ESOTech was that when it comes to mixed-use developments, you guys have you started pioneering a lot of things, including service apartments.
Correct.
And how do you think, all these components of development, wherein you have office spaces, you have retail, you have service apartments, hospitality, do they gel together? Do they work together?
Yes, I feel like a complete integrated business park. And of course, a green business park is needed of an hour in a modern era. If you have a guest staying in the same complex, if you have a guest who have a conference room in the same, there are multiple conference rooms, they have a club, gym, spa. It's a complete integrated, which was a distinct dream in NCR, will come true. So I hope this complex, people will take on their eyes. This is our feeling.
which is very good, which is also what is part of the smart city complex, which is where it is walk to work, okay, walk to shop, so you can do all the things and you don't have to go too much, so you don't spend that much energy, you don't drive too much, you don't use that much petrol. So that again, you know, the combination of these several categories together is a wonderful thing. From what I understand, you guys are also getting into foreign markets. I heard the last was in Colombo and all that.
I mean, but we'll deviate from the current topic, so we'll
I was
discuss
just
it.
curious. Was
We
it
are
true?
definitely yes. We are definitely yes. We are moving to foreign markets. But at the moment, let's stick to the same point of green
Sure,
building.
sir.
Thank you.
All right, John?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I think Dheeraj has got into 3 points together. And one was commercial leasing. I would start with that, actually, to add upon with Rohan. Yes, I agree with Rohan that as far as the commercial leasing market is concerned, past 2014 was very good, and in comparison to 2012 and 13, yes. Because the absorption pattern was very good, and because of the absorption pattern, the occupancy level went down. And in coming 2015 and 16, we are projecting the same and a better version than what 2014 was. That means the absorption level would go more, increase, and the vacancy level would go down. And that's a good sign in terms of commercial leasing. That's a very good sign, what we can pursue it right now. And this will help actually in terms of the rates as well. Today, the rates are competitive. This absorption and vacancy pattern in coming projected for 2015 and 16 would definitely give a boost to the rentals. And that's what I feel about it.
Sure.
And that's a good sign.
Parul, I have a question for you. Do you think the commercial leasing in, let's say, Gurgaon, vis-a-vis a Noida or a Greater Noida, how do you compare them and how do you see them going? You know, with Greater Noida and, you know, Noida Expressway extensions, all of that, and you compare it towards the commercial happening in Gurgaon. Do you think one is going to take over the other, or, you know, or Noida is also going to?
So, you know, very good question, first of all, but I think the answer really is an extension of what John just said, that increasingly the occupancy levels are going up and the supply is drying up. So what we have noticed in the first quarter itself is that there was a lot of demand and the absorption has gone high. So even if the first preference of the tenant is Gurgaon, but just because there is no contiguous space or real space available, the spillover effect could be good. It could be Noida. But as of now, what we have seen is that Noida still continues to be relevant for absolutely low-cost tenant occupiers, while Gurgaon has turned out to be a mix of both front and back-end office operations.
Great. The other thing which is coming with commercial leasing is REITs. We were just talking about that. I think the first one would probably be come out by DLF, will be doing that. And I personally feel, I think REITs are the way to go because it becomes easy for a developer to get money because the banks normally don't fund them. You know, it'll be across the world, you know, REITs are the way to go if you don't do straighter selling and if you work only on rental incomes. It's the definite way, and with the capital appreciation and with only 500 crores at the bottom limit, I think it's the way. Personally, if we get our tax structure right, I think REITs should be something that we should support and take ahead. Now, anybody would like to comment from the panel here on REITs?
I just think we have discussed this topic extensively in the last, discussion, but just rightly, as everyone said, that the relevance of REITs and the success of REITs will really depend on what guidelines the government comes out with, whether they sort out the taxation problems, especially with the DDT and the capital gain tax, because if we combine the both, taxation structure, it could go as high as 50%. And if that happens, then REIT actually is not going to be a success.
Anybody else wants to say something on that?
Practice, it's a great concept for all income generating assets, and we have a sizable number of income generating assets. in the commercial space available right now, which can, avail of the facility of REITs. The whole problem right now stems from the current tax regime. Most of our foreign investors right now perceive our tax regime to be, overly aggressive. So they have concerns with respect to MAT being implemented, MAT being applied on, even transfer of the asset from the developer to the SPV, then further MAT being applicable if they sell the asset further on. That's one concern. Obviously, the dividend distribution tax, considering that most of the income is distributed, the current level of the tax on dividend will actually not, it will not really make any financial sense to the investor as such, to invest in REIT if the current tax regime stays. So till the time they do not come out with proper guidelines saying, okay, we're going to remove it, or this is going to get, you're going to reduce the, the taxation percentage, whatever. Till the time that doesn't happen, you're going to have a situation where there are a lot of people who are planning REITs, but there are a lot of people who they may not actually come on and, really list their REITs in India. There's a lot of talk happening with a lot of people, probably going to Singapore and, listing the REITs there because the tax regime is extremely competitive there compared to in India.
But don't you think, somebody who cannot afford to invest in real estate and he can, going with an IPO in the primary market and spend, just put in 2 lakhs and own a part of a company, part of that REIT, which is possible, which makes it's so lucrative for a small investor, okay? Let's not just look at bigger investors, okay? REIT gives the smaller investor, and in the secondary market, you can go to all the way to 1 lakh. So it gives that opportunity to the man of the street, say, I own some real estate in a company maybe, but I own part of it, which might not be possible, otherwise. Don't you think so?
Like I said, right, it's a good concept. I mean, why would you not want to own, an asset through a REIT vehicle? The whole problem right now, if ultimately you're going to own the asset primarily from a perspective of the rental income that you're going to get as an investor. Now, if most of it gets lost in the tax regime that's prevalent, and you have to pay tax, then the whole idea behind investing in real estate doesn't make sense to you. Right? That is something that people will keep considering, and hence the reason that the dividend distribution tax is a huge cause of concern primarily for investors, large or small ones as well.
No, you're right, but if you were to, for developers who have to borrow money at humongous rates, if you're good, credible, okay, you'll get it for 16, 17, I know developers who've gone all the way 30%, and they're picking up money, and how are they going to pay it back? Obviously, so that, don't you think so, that will help the developers in terms of finance?
I worked for a REIT for about 5 years, right? That was a retail REIT. And at that point in time, we were trying to enter India market, and we made few representations to the concerned authorities, and unfortunately, there was no clarity as such. So answering your question, Dheeraj, it's a brilliant model, right? And nobody who understands REIT would say it is not. The point is, how do you implement in this market? So the fundamentals remain very, very, I would say, clear that it's a great model. The idea is, how do you implement it? How do you benefit the business houses, the developers? If it is helping them, it will happen. If it will not help them, nobody will touch it. So.
All right, we've got I think about 5-7 more minutes. So I'll just touch quickly on smart cities. Now, the government is saying we're going to do 100 smart cities. Okay, so there's 2 ways of doing smart city. Either you do right, which is starting from scratch, greenfield projects, or you go and remodify existing cities and try to make them feel a little smart. Okay. So do you think it is 100 cities? Is it really, is it far-fetched? Are we talking too much? And, we don't even have basic infrastructure in most of the cities. And we're talking about, cities which are governed by sensors, right from the government, okay, which is the nodal in a smart city, going to right from the traffics to the energy management, the grid management, the waste disposal, everything done through sensors. You think it is really, it's far-fetched what's going on with, government talking we'll do 100 smart cities? Anybody?
Yeah, Dheeraj. Yes, 100 smart cities, yes, it's a long way to go, I would say that, but not impossible. Yes, it connects with the green building, with the environment friendly, with building a smart city. The word smart city has it's a wider range of definition, which is very well connected to green concept. But there were challenges when the green building concept was initiated. There were challenges, AAA challenges, availability, affordability, awareness. We are at this stage crossed the initial level of pushing that we have developed and improvised on all these three things. Availability of green products are now very much easily available. Affordability, the prices at that point of time was in comparison to a conventional building, yes, it was about 50 to 20% increase. Now it has reduced to about 5 to 10%, depending upon the level of sustainability product you're using in that particular building. And of course, the awareness, yes. Now we're all aware of. We are sitting here and talking about the same, and number of conferences talking about that. So all these 3 points have been covered, yes. But as you have asked, still a long way to go. But they're not challenges actually. We could say beyond certain challenges, we could have to concentrate on certain steps to reach that destination and to make it really happen what we are dreaming for as of now. Like, for anybody, for example, I'm just saying, for any developer to build a green building, he needs to have awareness, availability, affordability, and beyond that, he needs to have viability of their project. So now how could a developer, even that 5 to 10% for a businessman is the numbers which he has to calculate for his viability potential. So now how could he get that? Yes, government needs to give them some soaps, some reliefs, some taxation stuff, or in terms of increasing the FAR, maybe just to throw out way, or it could be anything. But at the same time, I would like to put here, a very view of mine that apart from the awareness of a developer or a maker of a building in terms of green concept, the consumer needs to be more aware. Today, I primarily being into leasing, I really face the issues in terms of a tenant or a lessee. Though they appreciate a building, it's a green building, let me put this on the top one shortlisted building. But when it comes to pricing, he is not ready. Exceptions, separately, but he is not ready to pay more than a conventional building to that building. That awareness needs to be inculcated deep inside to all the corporates or companies, especially for newcomers, for an average companies. That needs to be inculcated because it's give and take. And that's how a developer could make it viable, and developer would be interested in putting that money so that he knows that it could fetch him the return.
Salil, could you also?
Your question was smart city.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thing is, immediate thinking of smart city is as good question as bringing back black money immediately to India. So of course, but better late than never. We thought of a smartphone in 1985. Today is the reality. At least we have started thinking of a smart city, all energy efficient, utilization of all resources put together, water conservation and all those factors. The initiation has been started, very good. May take 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, but nonetheless we have started this concept and this will be implemented also. Definitely with the willful government at the moment, this will be implemented. And incidentally, we have our Honorable Balvinderji here, would like to throw upon something on green cities concept here, if time permits. And about green building, our is of course necessity of the hour at the moment.
Don't you think when we talk about green buildings or environmentally friendly buildings or smart cities, I think it has, don't you think it has to do more with our attitudes? जब तक हम लोग केला खा के उसका छिलका सड़क पे फेंकते रहेंगे, okay, we are not going to do anything green. Okay, we've got to, that's the attitude. Okay, that's, I think it has to come for every one of us in across whatever we do. Okay, that we think about the environment, we think about that we have to pass on this to the next generation. Okay, I mean, I've lived in a smart city. I'm a New York resident for 22 years, and I can tell you that is, I think that attitude, this is how I feel. I mean, forget about the technicalities and the fact that you have to invest so much in fiber optics. I think it's just the attitude once we decide, okay, हमको साफ रखना है, गंदा नहीं करना है, हमको environment को खराब नहीं करना है, and be candid about it, be passionate about it. I think that would be the real start. Would you agree? All right.